Every single year, nature puts on what has to be one of its most incredible shows, right? That slow, steady explosion of green into gold and orange and crimson. We all see it. We pull out our phones to take pictures of it. We absolutely love it. But what you might not know is that underneath all that beauty, there's a really fierce, high-stakes, chemical battle going on for survival. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this whole masterpiece and solve the chemical mystery at the very heart of autumn.
So, let's start with the big question. Why do leaves really change color? I know, we all learned the simple version back in school, but the full story, well, it's so much more brilliant and way more strategic than you probably imagine. Okay, first things first, let's just get one major misconception out of the way. This isn't about dying. Autumn color is not a sign of decay. It's actually the exact opposite. It's a carefully planned, strategic withdrawal of resources as the tree gets ready for winter. Now, the scientific term for this whole process is leaf senescence, and it's all genetically programmed. Honestly, the best way to think about it is to picture the tree as this massive factory. Senescence is just the process of shutting down the summer production line, carefully packing up all the valuable machinery, and sending it into storage for the winter. So, our little investigation here begins with the most obvious change of all. Where does all the green go? This is part one, the programmed shutdown.
Right, so the green in every leaf comes from chlorophyll. That's the powerhouse molecule that turns sunlight into sugar. But here's the critical part. Chlorophyll is absolutely packed with nitrogen, which is one of the most valuable and limited nutrients for a tree. So as the days get shorter and there's less sunlight, keeping these solar panels running just isn't worth the cost anymore. The tree's #1 priority becomes breaking down that chlorophyll and pulling all that precious nitrogen back into its trunk and branches for safekeeping over the winter.
But, and this is a big but, this is an incredibly dangerous operation. You see, free chlorophyll is what's called photodynamic, which is a fancy way of saying if it's exposed to light while it's being taken apart, it basically becomes a chemical bomb that can destroy the cell. So the tree can't just let it fall apart willy-nilly. It has to be carefully and methodically diffused. And wouldn't you know it, the tree has a perfect 4-step plan to do it safely. First, it converts the chlorophyll into a form that's easier to handle. Then, a bunch of enzymes unlock and remove the valuable parts, like magnesium. But the most critical moment is step 3. A special enzyme called PAO cracks open the toxic core of the molecule, completely neutralizing it. Finally, the harmless, colorless leftovers get tossed into the cell's storage bin. It's a perfect, clean, and safe disassembly.
So with that overpowering green finally dismantled and packed away, a whole new palette of colors can finally make an appearance. And that brings us to part 2 of our mystery, the hidden colors.
And here is the big aha moment. The yellows and the oranges, they aren't new. They've actually been there the entire summer, working right alongside the chlorophyll. We just couldn't see them because that intense green was basically screaming over them, completely masking them from view. These hidden pigments are called carotenoids. You've heard of them before. Think of beta-carotene. Yep, the same stuff that makes carrots orange. That's what gives a sugar maple that classic fiery color. Or there's lutein, which makes entire aspen groves shimmer that brilliant yellow. Now, unlike the super fragile chlorophyll molecule, these carotenoids are incredibly stable, so they just hang around long after all the green has been packed away. And they're not just there for show either. All through the summer, and even during this shutdown process, carotenoids are working hard. They act as a kind of internal sunscreen for the leaf, soaking up any excess light energy and protecting all that delicate cellular machinery from getting fried. They're like the leaf's loyal bodyguards, protecting it right up until the very end. Okay, so we've solved the mystery of the disappearing green and the revealed yellows. But what about the most spectacular colors of all? Well, that leads us to the most puzzling part of this whole mystery, the costly crimson.
And here's where things get really interesting. Unlike the yellows, which were just revealed, the reds and purples are actively created in the fall. This is not a passive process at all. The tree actually has to spend a huge amount of energy to make these new pigments. Which leads us to the single biggest puzzle in autumn chemistry. Seriously, why on earth would a tree that's in the middle of shutting down and trying to save every last bit of energy for winter, spend its precious newly made sugar to manufacture a vibrant new color in a leaf it's literally about to throw away? I mean, it just sounds incredibly wasteful, doesn't it? Well, the answer starts with the recipe. As the leaf gets ready to fall, a special layer of cells at the stem starts to form a blockage, kind of like a door closing.
This traps any sugars made during the day inside the leaf. Now, when you combine those trapped sugars with bright, sunny days and cool, crisp nights, a specific set of genes gets switched on. And that's the trigger for the tree to start producing these red pigments, which are called anthocyanins.
Okay, but that just tells us how it happens, not why the tree would go to all that trouble. And that big question has led scientists to two competing theories. Is it just sunscreen, or is it a warning sign?
So scientists have two main ideas, and both of them are all about one thing: survival. The first is called the photoprotection hypothesis, and it says the red is a functional sunscreen. The second is the coevolutionary hypothesis, which argues the red is actually a signal, a warning to insects.
Let's look at that sunscreen theory first. The idea here is that even as the leaf is shutting down, its nutrient recycling machinery is still working overtime. All that bright autumn sun can actually damage this very delicate process. So the red anthocyanin pigments act like a shield, absorbing the excess light and protecting the whole recycling operation so the tree can get every last drop of valuable nutrients before the leaf falls off.
And get this, there's some really powerful data to back this up. Just take a look at this chart. Trees that produce red leaves, over on the left, recover way more nitrogen than the ones that just turn yellow. We're talking a huge difference. By investing a little sugar in this red sunscreen, the tree gets a massive return on its investment in salvage nutrients. Pretty clever, huh?
Then you have the second theory, the warning signal. This idea suggests that the red color is actually a message specifically for insects, like aphids that are looking for a cozy place to lay their eggs for the winter. A brilliant red leaf is basically a giant no vacancy sign. It's the tree shouting, "Hey, I'm super healthy, I've got strong chemical defenses, and I will be a terrible host for your kids. Go find somewhere else."
But you know what? The story doesn't actually end when the leaf finally falls to the ground. Its chemical legacy continues in its afterlife, right there on the forest floor.
After all the reds and yellows fade away, one last class of chemicals takes center stage: tannins. Now, these are defensive compounds that make leaves taste bitter to animals. Once the leaf has fallen and its cells die, these tannins are exposed to the air and they oxidize. That's what creates those final deep brown and bronze colors we see, especially in trees like oaks.
And this chemistry has a massive impact on the entire forest ecosystem. The chemical makeup of those fallen leaves really matters. Maple leaves, for example, they break down quickly, feeding nutrients right back into the soil for new growth. But tough, tannin-rich oak leaves, they decompose very slowly, which actually acidifies the soil and locks away carbon for the long term.
So, from a programmed shutdown and a dangerous chemical disarmament to hidden pigments and a costly investment in sunscreen, the story of autumn is just a masterpiece of biological engineering. And that leaves us with one final and pretty crucial question. The timing and the intensity of all these colors are incredibly sensitive to things like temperature and rainfall. So as our climate continues to change, as autumn nights get warmer and droughts become more frequent, what story will the leaves tell us next?